Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters, episode 412. We have a returning guest who hasn't been on in a little while, so we're anxious to catch up with Daniel. We'll get to Daniel in a moment, but first we're going to do what we always do, go around a virtual room and talk about anything that we got going on or anything we want to promote. So as far as me, kind of the same old thing. Just definitely check out my YouTube channel. Well, you're on my YouTube channel if you're watching this, but check out some of my videos. I've got tons of videos where I take vintage ephemera and things like that from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Figure out how it made, give you a little history lesson, and then I recreate it kind of within my own, put my own unique spin on it and everything. So definitely check those out. You can also go to my website at circworks.com where I have digital products that'll help you create comics. Or I got wax packs, I've got comic books, all kinds of other stuff that I create that are available on my store at circworks.com. What about you, Corey?
You can find my stuff at coreykerr.com. And if you go to coreykerr.com/email, that'll take you to my Substack, where I am writing a book out loud. I'm iterating in public, and so you can jump on there and you can get the chapters, as well as like my tutorial stuff. And I don't have a Patreon, but I do have a paid version of that Substack, and so you can get that stuff for free. Or if you want to jump on and throw me a couple bucks a month, that is an option as well.
Josh.
All right. Sorry, I had to mute. My allergies are crazy. Okay. You can find me on YouTube at Joshua Kemble, and you can also pick up Jacob's Apartment, my graphic novel. That's like if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, put it in a blender with Ghost World, and you like that kind of flavor. Doomed romance story about two polar opposite roommates that end up finding each other when their dreams reality interweave during really rough life circumstances. And so really good book, young adult. Make sure you pick that up. Then also Two Stories, which is my graphic novel that talks candidly about heavy topics such as suicide, depression, and panic disorder and other heavy topics like that. But it's not as heavy as it sounds. It's also lighthearted and tells stories like when you're a kid dressing as Indiana Jones for an entire year before cosplay was a thing. So check that out. That's an autobiographical graphic novel called Two Stories. And those are my two wares.
All right. So like I mentioned before, our guest is Daniel Davis, who has one of the coolest brands around, SteamCrow. If you're not familiar, you definitely want to check out SteamCrow and the Monster Rangers. Yes. I'm sure Daniel will talk a little bit about that. But Daniel reached out to me because he had seen some of the stuff I was doing on YouTube. And I said, well, why don't we get on and talk about YouTube? And he says, I'm not quite ready yet. And then I was like, well, we'll have you on again later when you're ready to do the YouTube stuff. But we came up with a topic that I think we're both kind of, I would say, concerned about, or just something we definitely want to talk about, hash a few things out. So we'll get to that in a minute. But before we do, Daniel, anyone who's not familiar with you, let everyone know what you do and anything you want to promote.
I'm going to release a new brand of toupee. So you can say I'm wearing mine right now. SteamCrow.com. I'm an illustrator with my wife, Donna. We make stuff that's monster themed and cartoony, but also I make a role-playing game set in the world of the Monster Rangers, which is also our community. It's kooky stuff. Go to monsterrangers.com and peruse, and SteamCrow.com, and you'll see what we do there. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say just to kind of explain a little more what Monster Rangers is. Imagine almost like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, but for adults, but monster themed.
Yeah. We believe steady, protect our monster friends. It's a crazy thing. I didn't ever set out to start an alt scouting community, but it happened sort of through the world, the content. So it's a great thing, and it's a rad group of people. So what happened was we're just making, monster themed art. We discovered the Monster Rangers as a story, and then our community was born out of that, and they turned it into a real thing. So we had to do real campouts with them, and I started writing lore, and eventually we made an RPG for it. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and Daniel's one of the people I look at to build community. And I think moving forward, with the topic we're going to talk about now is AI and how we can kind of circumnavigate, get around that whole AI thing that's coming for us all, and how we can thrive as artists. And I think Daniel's definitely on the right track because he has kind of built that community of makers. And I think being a maker, somebody who creates physical things and shows that process is definitely one way we can get around AI, because that's just not even if AI creates something where a robot is creating stuff, I don't think people care to watch that. They might think it's cool, or they might not know the difference, but people want to see humans create stuff. So Daniel, we kind of talked about this topic, and you were all pretty excited about it. So what I mean, from a I guess to talk, you're not excited about AI, but no, but what kind of I guess intrigued you about this, and what is I guess just start with why you wanted to talk about why it's so important for us to come up with some kind of maker, artists to lean into being makers and things.
Yeah, well, I've tried to bring this topic up over the last couple of years in a couple of communities I'm in, but like I got like chased out of the town with pitchforks. And
really, so
yeah,
usually it's the opposite. Once you start talking
No.
about doing AI art or something,
my mistake was I was like, listen, guys, I think there's a few different directions AI can go, right? We might be safely legislated, maybe it'll be, legislated to safety for us artists, which I don't think is going to happen. It's going to get worse somehow. It could happen with poisoning, but I don't know. Or it might mysteriously go away somehow, or it's here to stay. The cat's out of the bottle. The cat's out of the bottle, not the genie, the cat. That's right. And so the problem is that like everyone was like, it won't affect me. Or yeah, that's like NFTs, not going to bother. It's not going to affect me at all. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like maybe because I like to think through this stuff and I love having an art career, I think about it a lot. Yeah. And, and so I don't want this to go away, this art career. And so I actually bought a Midjourney account in early 2023 because I wanted to see what it was capable of, right? Mm-hmm. And prior to this time, Midjourney had a style. It had one style. It was the viney organic thing, right? And I was like, I don't think there's a lot to worry about there. But then
for you anyway, if you're a concept designer, maybe.
Yeah, but if you're designing jungles, but it rapidly changed, it got better. And then it was like, oh, okay, whoa. And it actually I spent talking about depression. I played around with it and was learning about it. And then it took the wind out of my legs, man. Like for about 2 months, I lost all the ability to create anything or to want to create anything. And I was like, it just took my legs away, man. It really was bad. And I got on some Zoloft and that really helped. So Zoloft for the win. But anyway, it was really disturbing. And so I got burned a lot because, I was trying it out. I was investigating how it worked because I think it's important to know what this thing can do. And so I still see people.
Your enemy.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
And what's, I still see artists saying things like, "Oh, it has one style." I'm like, you have not been paying attention. Like you can go to midjourney.com and they have a daily gallery of like top rated images. And I'll tell you what, I can tell that I don't know, a quarter of them are AI, but I cannot tell 3/4 of them because it does every style, every stinking style imaginable, and things I didn't even know it could do.
Yeah.
And just to like put it in perspective for people, a friend of mine who works in tech, who's always got like some wild side project, like NFTs come out. He's like, dude, you need to make me art for NFTs. And like, he's all on like where the technical kick is, and he's not thinking about this stuff from like an artist perspective. One day he thought it would be fun to just show me. He's like, hey, what's weird? I tried all our friends in the prompts, and none of them mimicked their styles. But when I put in Joshua Kemble, it mimicked your style. Check out the illustration I made, and I'm like, I looked at it, and it was not exact, but it was close enough to where I felt very similar to what you felt, Daniel, where I was like, I had a moment or two of, wow, this is a little scary, because it's like that's scary that somebody, and I'm not a huge illustrator, so that was really scary to me, was the fact that's yeah, it's got broad implications.
How tall are you, Josh?
How tall am I?
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell the algorithm?
No, you just said you weren't big, so I was just curious because you're small on my screen.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's like the. Do you remember Top Secret, the movie?
Yes.
Did you guys ever see that? Where it's like, I know a little German. He's sitting over there.
Yes. That's all we got.
So Daniel, so like what you just, again, and I'm kind of knowing your brand and seeing all the products and things that you create, and to know that affected you that much where you couldn't even create artwork, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I am currently leaning into doing more maker stuff, because I think actually showing how to do stuff and doing this stuff it's just, if art becomes something that it's like a niche thing, like you're making, like the people out there that are making axes, anyone can go to the store and buy an axe, fine, but there's people that actually make axes, and people will watch that content more than they're going to watch a machine put together an axe in a factory or something like that. So knowing your brand and everything, and like even before the show, I said, I don't know how much this would affect you, because pretty much everything you create is like physical and real and tangible, and your kind of eyes went like, no, this is affecting me. So what is it? Is it the actual like creation of the artwork before you get to the production side that kind of worries you so much? And I mean, I think we all have a right to be worried, obviously, but
I think what's important at this juncture that I need to do that you guys are doing and I'm not, is I need to find ways to build a larger audience of people that care about me and Donna and our survival and our brand of stories, right? And doing Comic-Cons isn't really doing that so much anymore.
Right.
And so I think YouTube is a great way to have a channel, a show that people can discover daily and discover you and learn about what you make and your passions and all that. And I think that's the missing part of me. That's the thing that we don't have, right?
Yeah.
So why I'm concerned is because while I do have some followers that are awesome people, to be discovered when there's an onslaught of AI art,
right,
and it's going to make it even harder to be seen and discovered. So I feel like for us, it's a number one job to work on this, to try to find a way so people can get to know us and learn about what we're doing, again, what we're passionate about. And I think it's almost the only answer that I can think of.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could become an artisan, axe maker and, sell your $9,000 axes at the axe throwing competitions or something. But I don't know, man. Like, I think it's something to be very concerned with. And even with a community and a focus,
Yeah, Corey and I were talking about this a couple years back when Andrew Yang was running, and I was a big fan of Andrew Yang because of the constant discussion of AI and it kind of taking trucking jobs, and he was kind of listing a lot of stuff in a great book about kind of the oncoming replacement of everything with AI, and everybody thought he was really being like hyperbolic at the time, and what's weird is I think artists we always kind of thought we'd be like last in the line, where it would be automating systems like manual labor kind of jobs and stuff like that. Little did we know that like it's going to start hitting the humanities, And it's crazy because it's like, even with
it's
grading, Corey will know this, but it's like if you assign an essay now, a lot of kids going to school know how to auto generate essays using AI, and they just punch
yeah.
in the prompt into the AI generation and it runs an essay for them. And it's
So
crazy.
there's
And some of them are really convincing. It's
it's
very anyhow,
it's
sorry,
very
go ahead.
it's very similar to the robots. I mean, we've had if one of my favorite things to do, because I had a very similar experience to you, Daniel, as I was starting to look into this. Well, as I was starting to see my predictions come true, because about 6 years ago I kind of predicted that this would happen, right? And as I started to see that happen, it happened a little bit later than I thought, but much faster than I thought. And so once it was released open source on the market, um, it was adopted much quicker than I thought. Um, but anyway, if you go back into the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, you will see a lot of fear about robots. You know, the same type of thing that we're hearing now. Um, and it's interesting because, I mean, you know, in the 80s and 90s, you saw a lot of automation through articulated arms and manufacturing and those types of things. That has largely plateaued, and the main reason that that's largely plateaued is robots are extremely good at a couple of things, but they're not nuanced. And so they're very good at lifting large, heavy things, but they're not good at doing that in a space where damage ends life. So they have to be cordoned off. Um, they're huge resource hogs as far as like power and things like that. And so there's these outside limiting factors that tend to make it so that they're useful, but they're only useful with human intervention or a lot of human care. For example, if you mix AI with robotics, you get a lot of the self-driving cars and stuff. And in San Francisco right now, they have a problem where they're replacing a lot of human drivers, low-paid human drivers, with automated drivers. But for the safety of those pedestrians, because an AI-driven car will hit someone and drag them a couple miles before it recognizes what's going on. There's actually two full-time, high-paid tech workers watching each single vehicle, and so we've replaced one person with a robot, AI, and two more expensive people, and so as I was kind of going through my kind of very similar kind of spiral where I lost a lot of creative drive and those types of things, I really started looking into it. I think there's two possibilities that I'm praying for. And one is a model collapse. I think a model collapse is a very real possibility because it's the snake eating its own tail, right? As the internet becomes filled with the garbage that AI is producing, as good as that is getting, and it's going to get better and better. It continues to get better. It's gotten better. They've solved a lot of the multi-fingered hands things. They've solved a bunch of the like too many teeth and a lot of that stuff. But they're still filling the internet with that, and every AI detector out there is insufficient. It is really bad at detecting AI, and so nobody's really figured out how to detect it. Um, each new model that comes out is going to be fed specifically off of the internet, which is going to be more and more full of the dross that AI is putting out. And so it's like eating your own feces. Eventually, as you continue to go through that cycle of repetition, you're losing nutritional value with each model, and you get model collapse where it will just start putting out nonsense because it's been flooded with nonsense. That's one option. The other option is actually, I think, a lot more likely, and this is the one that I think could happen really soon, and I think it's going to be really surprising. I think, and Cory Doctorow says this best. I've got a quote that we can read later if it comes up organically in the conversation, but he talks about the bubble of AI, that it meets all the same type of hype that you've gotten in a lot of other bubbles. I think NFT is a little bit unique, and so I don't think that's a good comparison. But a lot of the other kind of like .com bubbles or the housing bubbles, those types of things that you've seen, like in 2004, 2008.
Or Photoshop when it was first introduced, and the
Sure.
sick, disgusting rainbow throwing up great art that lasted for a couple years, you know.
But that is not a financial bubble, but it was just a glut of that type of work. But what Cory Doctorow is pointing out is that AI is very good at making good things better and more time consuming and more expensive to produce. It is not good at reducing those risks. So the example that he gives is if you go in and you say, now having a radiologist check stuff, we've trained these people to look for specific things. That's a very valuable service, but the human might miss something, right? And so we run that through AI. Now AI can look for stuff and it can do stuff, but AI has a huge problem that they like to they call it this cute name of hallucination. It lies. It just invents things that are not true.
That's one of the issues with the story writing or the news writing.
Yeah. So it invents scientific sources. The journalism is completely shot. You cannot trust it. And so the best thing that AI can do in a radiologist situation is it can go through and it can say, oh, there's a problem here. And then you still have to have a person check it. And so you still have to have a trained paid person. And so what it actually did is it added an extra layer, which potentially could make the system more effective, but it definitely makes it more time consuming and more expensive because it adds 2 extra steps. First, you have a human look at it, then you have an AI check that against its thing. If it disagrees with the human, you have to have another human look at it again to see if it has hallucinated or not. And so their pitch is to the public, the AI bros and the tech bros, their pitch is to go in there and to say, hey, this is revolutionary. It's democratizing art. Now there's no gatekeepers, all this BS, everybody can do it, or whatever. As if art was somehow gatekept beforehand, like it was only up to the rich or something, or whatever. Like anybody with a crayon can do art, and the gatekeeping is just time and focused effort.
Wait a minute. Artists are gatekeepers because they have the talent and these other people don't.
The talent that I bought from that wizard.
That's right.
Those
beans.
But the
that is true. You guys don't tell them about the beans. People should never find out.
Let me pull this up and then I'll stop talking. So he says, I'll just make myself full screen here. He's talking about there aren't that many customers for products that make their own high stakes, better projects more expensive, right? But the low stakes applications like selling kids a subscription where they can make their RPG characters in action, they don't pay very much. The universe of low stakes, high dollar applications for AI is so small that I can't think of anything that belongs in it. Add up all the money that the users with low stakes, fault tolerant applications are willing to pay and combine it with the money that risk tolerant, high stakes users are willing to spend, and then add in all the money that high stakes users are willing to make their products more expensive in order to keep them running. If all of that sums up to less than it takes to keep the servers running, to acquire, clean, and label new data, and to process it in the new models, then that's it for big commercial AI. That means that equation that he's laying out doesn't make financial sense unless you look at the thing that I think is actually happening, which is even more terrifying, but I'll get to that in a minute. So I think there's going to be a public B2C bubble collapse, with the exception of the military-industrial complex, because you have the U.S. government, the CIA specifically, investing heavily into AI because of its mass surveillance and facial recognition. I mean, we're going to be
and not just that, like piloting aircraft now. They actually have a new X plane that is actually run on AI. That they're testing here in my area.
And we are going to be locking up a lot more black people because they still haven't figured out how to get facial recognition to be accurate outside of Caucasians. And so there's just
you also wonder, like in warfare, what happens if the AI makes that lie? Like it's a scary world.
One of the big issues that's going on right now, I don't even know if I want to broach this subject on YouTube, but I'll speak generally. In the Middle East, there's stuff going on And one of those countries is using AI to come up with its targets. And AI is so efficient at spitting out targets that that is one of the reasons why that war has been just horrendous on a global scale, because normally it would take human actors much longer to do those types of things. And so the introduction of AI just saying bomb this, bomb this, bomb this, and bomb this, it is literally spitting out, according to one article that I read, hundreds of targets a day.
Yeah. As far as just the inaccuracies of AI, I spent 4 hours yesterday redoing something because I relied on AI for something. So I this new project I'm doing, I shared it with Daniel, but this new project that I'm doing for my next video, it's got a specific box, and I was trying to find out what the size of this box was. And I went to YouTube, I typed it in, I didn't get anything back. I looked at photographs trying to find something where I can do a size comparison. The only thing I found was a part of a thumb holding up a box. So I'm kind of gauging. So anyway, so I'm going through all this stuff, and to order a vintage one of these boxes, which is something I might usually do and deconstruct it and rebuild it, they're like hundreds of dollars because it's vintage and people are collecting them. So I'm like, so I went to Chat GPT and I'm like, what is the size of this box for this particular product? And it comes back and it says that particular product is 9 by 10 inches. And I'm like, I don't think that's right, because it's square. and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's thinking because they reproduce new ones, like more recent ones in a different size thing that's more rectangular. So like, it must be confusing them. So I'm like, I don't think that's right. This product was square, had a square box. And it says, and it comes back and says, you are correct. Sorry for that. The actual size is, and it says 9 by 9. And I'm like, okay. So I design it, and then I'm designing all this in the computer, so I can't tell. I print it out and I'm like, this looks kind of small. So I go again and I find this product. It's about the size of a record album, but I don't think it's 12 inches. I know how big a record is. So I find a picture of a collection of a number of products. One of them was this one thing. The other was a record. And it's like, then I can tell, oh, it looks like it's about 11 inches. So I had to go back and redesign everything, take all my Illustrator files, and then and so about 4 hours to do all this because I relied on AI. So, I mean, but it doesn't cite any kind of, it doesn't say, it just like, it's a fact. Oh yes. And then you correct it. And I've done that a couple times where like if I'm doing research on something, like sometimes I'll have AI generate for my trading cards, because it's just basic. It's just a description recapping something, and rather than typing all that, I'll do that. But then sometimes it'll give you wrong information, and I know enough about these movies, and like, that's not correct, and I'll go and it'll say, you are correct, that is not correct, and then, but it doesn't cite any kind of, it scans the internet, and if there's bad information on the internet, so it just takes everything with no, and it presents it to you like it's a fact. So
yeah. Hey, Corey, thanks for bringing up Cory Doctorow. He's a great futurist thinker, guy, author.
He's like a balm to the wound I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah, but the other, with your point too, with Doctorow's point, the costs of this. I mean, you're talking about massive amounts of computer power that's being applied, and electricity and all that, because they're trying to get investment. I think one of these companies just folded this last week because they were, it's so expensive, and those costs are hidden at the moment,
Right.
It's
I
to lose money.
Some of the companies themselves, in defense of them a little bit, some of it is just like a research project that just got way too popular. And I've seen a couple of those AI generator sites, like where the owners are like, look, people are complaining about crash and stuff. Like, we weren't intending this to be like massively adopted for like making stuff. Like, this is just kind of an experiment. And other costs just to keep it running are like through the roof. So I could definitely see that occurring more.
I think there's a couple companies, and this is where I have a different problem, but I'm not a fan of monopolies. If you want a free market, you've got to have competition. And since the 80s, we've been allowing everybody to just monopolize things and do anti-competitive practices and destroy their competitors and stuff. But I do think most of the stuff is gonna go belly up. But you have Microsoft behind one, you've got Google behind several, you've got Meta, which owns Facebook, and they're behind some others. Those are three companies that have gone out of their way to be unscrupulously evil in the way that they deal with the market. And I think that because it's not their entire business model, I think they'll be able to weather the storm of that bubble bursting. And then the fourth one, which it seems very confusing to me, but I think Adobe is also gonna stick with it. And so
Well,
everybody else,
Apple's about ready to release theirs as well. So there's somebody else that can weather. They've got the bank account to weather quite a bit.
And then as soon as Amazon gets into the game, then you have the six companies that basically own everything on Earth.
Yeah, the six-headed beast. It's a little scary to me too, because generally this has been my I guess depression about it is I'll soothe myself by saying, well, people care about art, like people actually care about individual artists. My stuff's always in anyway, so it's like I'll comfort myself with stuff like that. But then I also think about my experience doing commercial work, where and this is no knock to clients, but sometimes clients will make decisions that are just aesthetically like awful and intentionally do it, and they don't have like the eye or the knowledge or the care to like see if like the kerning's off on lettering, or like little nitpicky details. And it is a part of me that's a little scared that the general public kind of wants the AI thing. Like they mind if like there's six fingers on their Ninja Turtle or property they're already a fan of, because that's all they want. So that's the more kind of cynical dark side that I'll go to with it. But in general, I tend to try to be optimistic in the sense of, kind of like Daniel, what you were talking about. I think at the end of the day, we're going to be kind of doing like the thing we've been doing. I think it's just kind of built in us. And I think the idea of like building a fan base, like you were talking about, it might like, more of a direct interaction where people are seeing kind of behind the process and getting to know you might be a solution.
I want to circle back to that, what Daniel was talking about. There's two things. One, a quick joke. I've seen this on the internet a lot, where somebody said, we don't need to worry about AI because the success of AI relies on clients being able to articulate what they want.
This is true.
So that's fine. But I was talking. A friend of mine just started a ballet studio in town, and she and I were discussing this topic, and she said, the interesting thing about the whole AI thing and robotics and all this type of automation and stuff is, it's neat while it's neat while it's novel. But once it's not novel anymore, there's no longer any interest to it, because Boston Dynamics robots dancing is fascinating because it's novel. But as soon as that's not novel, I don't care to watch them. I would never pay to go to a ballet and watch them do that. I would never pay to go to a concert and watch a speaker. I'm going because I want to watch a human that has dedicated countless hours and honed their body and their mind to be able to produce something. And the performative nature of that is as impressive to me as watching the Olympics. I mean, if I had a robot that beat somebody in the long jump, I would be like, well, yeah. I mean, they just built it that way. But you have a person who can run super fast or jump very long or draw a face really well or come up with this creative story. That is so much more interesting to me than something that was programmed or built to do that, because who cares after the novelty wears off? So Daniel, I'm kind of curious, after the Zoloft and after you kind of came out of the hole, because I'm on the edge of that at the edge of that hole at all times, and I topple in sometimes. But where did you land? I mean, did you are you going to do more of the performative nature of art, or get people involved in the process, building a community around? Like, where are you now?
Well, some of it is around what I've made. So I made this role playing game. This has been a lifelong dream, and I didn't think I'd get there. And it took Zoloft to get me to that end gate, right? Because I couldn't tackle a project of that scale. I've done books and things before, but that's like 64 pages. Like you can do 64 pages, one page at a time, but with this RPG, I got it done. Well, this is like I'm kind of going back to my foundation as a creator. Like I learned about D&D and drawing all kind of at the same time. And so for me, a lot of it is going to be around making some content around that kind of stuff, which is our Rangerverse of the stories of our community, along with miniatures that I've been designing. And so it's gonna be all that sort of thing. Sorry, I probably went into some weeds there. What was restate the question, please?
Oh no, I'm curious on what your plans are moving forward. If you are optimistic, and why?
Gotcha. So, I I'm probably a pessimist that wants to be an optimist.
Yeah.
Because I worry about stuff, but that worry has made us, it's made us stronger too. But I'm excited about where we're gonna go because again, I'm gonna share. It'll be a little less product centric, so I don't have to talk about the thing that you need to buy right now. I think there's some beauty in that because I hate selling and being a con artist. It's all about selling all the time. But I again back to the needs. I want to give other ways to express what we're passionate about and share that with people, and share how we make the things we're doing, and then tell stories as I'm showing you this miniature that I'm sculpting. I'm going to be telling you the story of that character, maybe, and that sort of thing. So anyway,
that's rad. I think that so this kind of comes to mind too, just to mention, because we talked a little bit about mental health on the last episode of Artcasters, and I think it's important to kind of let people know, like listening, there is like a stigma that some people have, including myself a long time ago. I used to have against antidepressants and stuff like that, or and I want to actually totally say that it's actually really, there is no shame in using it, and I definitely use them and have for years. And I think especially for the artistic temperament where we are prone to overthinking, it's kind of what we do. We're storytellers, right? So it's like when you're a storyteller, you're thinking about all the little minutiae and details, and then also the whole and the details, and that's great for creativity. But for real world stuff, for like big issues, it can be really kind of run you on a path you don't want to be on. So I think it's cool, Daniel, that you're doing it, and I want to say to our listeners too, if you guys are out there and feeling kind of overwhelmed or anything like that, don't feel ashamed to like seek out help with that kind of stuff, because it makes a massive difference.
Oh my gosh, man, let me tell you, I was afraid of medicating because I thought it would take away the magic of what I could make. I thought it would dampen my creativity. I was sure of it. So I self-medicated any way I could, for 40 years. And I started realizing I was having a panic attack at every con I was ever at. I just didn't know it. I just was flipping out. I'm like, oh, this is just what I do because I'm introverted. I'm like, no, I'm flipping out, and not being able to handle it. And finally, I was, really, it was starting to really like accelerate, where it was happening more and more and more and faster and faster. So I'm finally like, listen, to my wife Donna, I'm like, listen, man, I got to do something. So I got on it, and it hasn't tampered any of my creativity at all, not one bit. And I am so sad I didn't get on it 20 years ago. I've been married to 25 years with Donna, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry that I didn't do this earlier. So yeah, it's been a really good thing.
That's what I feel about like ADHD, because I haven't taken any medicine for that since I was a kid. I did a little bit after I got divorced, but anyway, like I keep worrying that if I do that, it's gonna hinder my creativity, because I look at the kind of ADHD as like almost like a superpower.
Well, yeah.
But, yeah. So I don't know.
Bipolar's power. No.
So, but let's see, what was I gonna? I was getting off into the mental health thing, but I was going to mention something.
Oh, sorry, I derailed us. That's my role in the show. To derail.
That's what this show does. It just goes where it goes. So, but I guess looping back around to sort of the maker content and everything, and again, because we had talked about, like, no one wants to go. Gary's comment about no one wants to go to the Olympics and watch the robot athletes or whatever. But I find the same thing. Like, I'll click on a video, like an essay or something, a video, and it's clearly generated by AI, and I can't. Me personally, I turn it off. I just can't listen to it. It's like the inflections on the words are weird, and it's just I'm not interested. Plus, I know if the person reading it is done by AI, then the script was probably generated by AI, and like I just talked about, it's probably not even accurate. So I'm probably learning about something that isn't even true. So,
or it's just like it's the shallowest information possible.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what it's good for. That's why I said, like, I have used like ChatGPT to generate just the information on the back of my cards, because it's not written in a way that's like in my voice or anything, or it's not creative. It's just, this happened. This is what happened in this particular scene. So I've used it for that. But basically what I'm getting at is, I think it's listening to either listening to somebody that I know is not AI generated, or watching them. It's the personality. And I think, and it's hard. This is going to be a hard pill to swallow for a lot of artists, because we are introverted, most of us. I'm an introvert too. But, I started doing videos a long time ago, and you get better at it and better at it. But I think you're going to have to really lean into your personality, and whether that, and some people it's more comfortable. Like, I mean, my personality on YouTube, it's definitely authentic, but it's taken up a couple notch. I mean, I don't typically walk around with the green lab coat in real life, but, the underground lair, all that stuff. But to me, that makes it a little easier for me to do if I kind of put myself in, like for instance, on Halloween, if I'm dressed up like somebody, I'll do the voice and do all that kind of stuff. But if somebody asks me to do an impression or something just at the spur of the moment, that's difficult for me. But I'll get into it, because it's like I'm getting outside of my body, and I'm kind of creating something that's a little, I don't know, that's one way that's easier for me personally. But I think just letting your personality out as part of your artwork, as part of what you're creating, is something I think a lot of artists are going to need to lean into, depending on what, where generative AI takes us.
Yeah. And I think authenticity is a huge thing. Corey and I used to talk about that all the time, but it's like, I think that, to me, inauthentic art, which comes out all the time anyway, not just from AI, but from boring business people. But it's like, it's always like, it always just rings wrong, like inauthentic things. And I can't help but hope that, whether it's doomed or not, because I'm kind of with you, Daniel, where I can be a doomer when it comes to I can be like, I don't know, it may not be a bright future, but I can only hope that authenticity is shine through. And I will say this, there's that thing that got popular a while ago. You guys remember that AI Nirvana song? Everybody on the internet was freaking out about.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It doesn't sound anything like Nirvana. It doesn't have the soul or the authenticity of anything Nirvana ever did. And so it's
But
like, while it might to like to a guy in a suit and tie in like a corporation, maybe it sounds like Nirvana.
we
But
also
it's
have
like,
to realize that it's only going to get better. And
yeah,
some people don't. I mean, we notice the difference because we're
yeah,
connoisseurs of art or music or whatever. The average person
yeah,
doesn't. Like I mean,
I
a big
agree.
part of my business before it still is a little bit. I still get royalties and stuff, but I was generating like coloring books and things like that. And at the time when I was learning that business, and I'm drawing all these stuff myself, and other people are like, to them it's not like an art, it's just a business. Like, so they're going and here's how to find this clip art and put all this clip art, and once AI came into it, forget clip art. Now they're just generating stuff, and they'll just throw a million coloring books on Amazon, and it's just all soulless. But I mean, I guess the audience, it's just like a spray and pray method, but the audience, half of them don't know the difference between a book and
that is
funny
tough.
you bring that up, because I was just reading about I was, as I've been researching YouTube more in terms of a creator, I of course am stumbling on the how to make money on the internet, and reading about one that I didn't realize. I knew the coloring book thing was big, but I didn't know it was like $40,000 a month for one creator, big.
Not for me, but
yeah, but also, like, I was also reading about, somebody mentioned another author who'd written, like, in like 2 or 3 months they've written 80 books that are on Amazon print on demand. And I'm like, Amazon's gonna not like this, I think, at a certain point, because they're just flooding it with so much stuff.
Amazon recently limited, this is going to crack you up, to combat that. They've recently limited creators, I think, to 12 books a day.
12 books a day.
And
I love that that's going to flood the market and drown indies, which that to me is tragic. I don't like the idea of it drowning indies in the algorithm.
Well, that's the other risk. Like, the other reason I think, that I'm worried is that, if it just stays with where we're at today, while it isn't great at solving direct business problems, all right, make this logo or this illustration with this person, it's not great at that, right? It's good at making D&D portraits, because you can write to the art rather than vice versa. But I don't know, where was I going with this? Who knows? I don't know. But go ahead.
I could see going one of two ways. One, the way that I think we should all push for is, I think Amazon and all those other companies that we were talking about, I think they are going to be flooded with garbage. I mean, I think people are already getting a little frustrated with Amazon because, we don't like the thought of, like, buying something that is causing people to be worked so hard that they have to pee in bottles while they're driving. Like, we're not fans.
And that's just in America, right? Not on the manufacturing side.
And then, on the flip side of that, if you get on Temu or AliExpress or Alibaba, you're going to see all of the same products now that are on Amazon, because everybody has figured out this gamification of the system. And so I think we have the possibility for an indie market to kind of emerge. I'm hoping that we see dozens of little sites that start to, have kind of collective action amongst the indies that can combat this mass production of garbage, that are filling our oceans and choking the economy and the world.
Did you happen to see the South by Southwest keynote by the founder of Patreon?
I was just going to talk about Patreon, because there are people out there that are interested in indie creators. Patreon is a perfect example. But yeah, you sent me that, Daniel, and I still haven't checked it out. But
check it out, man!
I have to. Go ahead.
It's great.
I'll have to watch that. I like that. I like that.
Can you bullet point, like, some?
Yeah,
super quick? I'm just curious.
So basically, Jack, is it
Jack Dorsey?
Oh,
yeah, Jack Dorsey.
Oh, okay.
There's Dorsey, the Twitter guy. Anyway, whatever.
Not
Conte?
Jack Dorsey.
Conte, right?
Conte.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
The
here's
other
the cool
Jack.
thing about him is that he's a
He's
musician.
a human and a crayon at the same time. Sorry, that
Yes,
was an art
he
joke
is.
content.
But he's an artist. Like, he's a singer and he's a musician. He's great. And so
Yeah.
he happens to have the right viewpoint about the kind of marketplace that we need, because he's like, listen, man, every one of these platforms, which I know you guys have experienced this, it's for the platform. It's not for us. So like, the algorithms have made it really difficult for us to reach our fan bases, right? Like, Facebook was great for me for a long time, and now it's just a pale shadow of what it was before. So anyway, his point is they are trying to become like the best possible marketplace for you to reach your audience. And like, it's like a new, like, he's like, listen, this is what we need to be only about. And so, they don't want to have an algorithm between you and your followers. Basically, it's called The Death of the Follower, in fact. But definitely watch it. I don't remember, but it's great.
I hope that's true, and I trust Jack Conte. The only thing is, Patreon is also funded by venture capitalists, and they're gonna want their money. And
I'm sure.
So it's that whole concept of enshittification is, that's what I worry about happening to Patreon as well. So
and that's why I think you throw Substack, Patreon, and a dozen more, because I think diversification is the key. Like,
I think it's great. I would love
one-stop shop.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The other way that so that's what I'm working towards, right? I'm working towards let's get a healthy economy of indie creative work, and let's get the Etsy's and and let's get the Gumroads, and let's get all that out there and get it moving and get everybody going. I think that's a very viable possibility. The other thing is kind of, Christopher Runciman brings up this point. The herd looks for the easiest grass to consume as the largest problem. Count on the majorities to disappoint. So here's where I think it also could go, is right now we've come off of decades of people getting used to consuming like art that is made by people, right? But we've in the last 10 to 20 years, we've shifted, especially Hollywood, has shifted into like a blockbuster only situation where we're trying to have the one size fits all. Like, you're going to get an MCU movie and that's it. That's the only thing in the theater right now, or you're going to, whatever. I do worry that when you talk about social media, so I teach a class called Intentional Creativity. And so these are 18 to 24-year-olds. Every single student that I have talked to, they don't like how much they use their phones. They don't like how much they use social media. They don't want to be doing the things that they're doing. I think if you talk to most people, we don't want to be doing the things that we're doing. And every time you go through this process where it's this new platform, and I mean, Scott brought up enshittification. This is part of that, right? There's the capture that Zuboff talks about. There's the capture process where you go in and you use some sort of capture to capture a network. You get the network effect. It's really good for the users. You give them everything they want. Organic growth goes through the roof. Discoverability is incredible. Yeah, that's where TikTok is on kind of at the tail end of that right now. Instagram used to be that. Before that, Facebook was that, and MySpace. That is not profitable on a mass scale when you have billions of users. And so you shift to a more addictive model, which is worse for the users. We don't like being addicted to it. I want to be able to get on, see the stuff that I've chosen to see, and then go about my day and interact with other people eye to eye, and touch grass with my feet and do normal things. But we're so driven by this addictive timeline, this algorithmically driven timeline, that we call it doom scrolling. We don't even like it. We will spend hours flipping through stuff that is just mind melting in its just vapidness. And that's where it's at. But that's what we've gotten used to. And so if you look at Surveillance Capitalism by Zuboff, she argues that the more tech pushes this type of stuff, the more it becomes the norm. And so like there's this introduction, initial shock, pull back, wait, and then slow roll out, and then you just lean into it while everybody hates it until it kills off everything else, and then it's the only thing that's left and everybody does it. And if you look at Google Glass, that's exactly what happened. There was an initial rollout, shock, everybody mocked it. Everybody's like, AR is never going to be a thing because, you know, no one's going to like it or whatever. And now I know people at work that are wearing the Facebook Stories Ray-Ban glasses, you know, and they're walking around with an AI-driven camera and mic that is active at all times, and it looks cooler and it's becoming more normal, and everybody's adopted wearable tech now because they give us like the most minuscule of features, like knowing what my heartbeat is. And so I have an active microphone that can listen to every word that is said around me, and then it monitors my heart rate and sends that information. Well, if you know someone's heart rate goes up or down based on specific words or phrases, what do you think you can do to that person as far as manipulation? That's significant, but it helps me when I work out or whatever. And so I do worry if I allow myself to get into that more pessimistic model. I do worry that we as human beings are prone towards self-destruction because it's easier than creation.
Now, there's another angle to this, and then I want to hear about Daniel's awesome role-playing thing because it sounds so cool. But it's like the thing that the optimistic side, I want to be optimistic. That's the thing. I have to try to be optimistic. The nice thing is, like with the Apple Watch thing, that's a good example where I actually just got a smartwatch like last week, and it's been awesome, and it has helped me work out, and I'm using it as a tool. There is a trade-off. Yeah, it's probably sending to like some weird corporation the algorithm. So, but my point is, it's a tool. It's like I don't rely on it. I mainly needed a new watch. It's a cheap one, and it helps me track time while I'm working. You know, and I'm teaching, so you know, Corey, the time thing. It's like with rambly guys like you and I will go over if I'm not constantly watch checking. So it's like I don't want my phone out and be telling students to not have their phone, or I'm going to be like having my watch.
Just get a dumb watch. No, I don't want to make you feel bad about your purpose, but you've just volunteered to be the dog in Pavlov's experiment.
I know. But what I'm saying is like there's a part of that of what I hope happens with AI. The better angels, I think, however, might adopt this as a tool for artists. I don't buy it as a justification to support it, especially when it comes to AI art. But that's my hope, is that, you know, it could be used as a tool rather than a crutch. And I like, to me, my worry, like what you were saying, Corey, it could just be that everybody just wants the crutch, and that's a little scary. But yeah, it's hard to say, because like it is funny, because you're right with that example of like a smartwatch. I have a smartwatch. I love it. I rely on it. You know, I've only had it for like a week or two, but it's been nice. It is a little scary because you are doing a trade-off, and like that's kind of the scary thing about like social media and things like this. And with art, that's a trade I'm not willing to make, but it's like
the trade-off. The trade-off to wearable tech for me is less about the surveillance, which I think is happening, but is more about the fact that you are acclimating yourself to having billionaires reach out to you at any point in time that they want. So
yeah, that's a little scary. And you're definitely being sold to a marketing firm for sure.
Yeah, but we used to have. Do you remember in the 80s and 90s when your leg would just randomly itch? And now we have something called phantom vibration syndrome, where if you don't have your phone in your pocket, and your leg itches, your brain has been rewired to think that you're getting a notification on your phone. If we think about
and
that,
honestly, you can even see that almost like Pavlov. Like if you hear phone buzz or something in a room, you'll see everybody look at their pocket, like just instantly.
Right. And so if you think about that from a wearable tech standpoint, we're actually volunteering, more than volunteering. We're paying companies to rewire our neurology so that we can react to normal stimuli as part of their capitalistic model to get us. It's like, anyway,
damn
sorry,
you, Corey.
I know. I'm gonna just turn my mic off for a minute and go back to drawing.
No, Corey.
No.
No, Corey. Right. This top are perfect for this.
Yes.
So yeah.
I feel bad making people feel bad about their purchases, but I think wearable tech is one of the most insidious things that you could possibly do to yourself.
Listen, we're set up. All we need is a dictatorship, and we got everything in line. Everything is so set up.
It's true.
It's so set up.
I mean, Daniel, thank God no one out there wants like some sort of nationalistic leader or anything. I mean, that would be, there's no possibility of that. I don't see any general consensus in the public hoping for that.
Daniel, you mentioned 1984. There is one of the most fascinating debates. I don't like watching a lot of debates, but this one was interesting, of whether we are living in 1984 right now or whether we are living in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. And the argument for the Brave New World is so much more accurate. I think 1984 is happening, but a Brave New World is not. So 1984 is that the totalitarian government destroys language and burns books and, oppresses the people with fear and threats. A Brave New World is actually worse, is that we don't need to burn the books because no one is interested in reading them because they're so entertained.
We sleep and hear it.
We've just
welcome
made the public so stupid that we welcome the oppression because it continues to give us it continues to tell us whether our workout was effective or not.
By the way, as you're talking, I'm looking.
By the way, my workout was really effective. No, anyhow, go ahead, Danny.
I'm looking at land in Alaska right now, off the grid. I grew up off the grid in high school, by the way, and my family decided, hey, the government's telling us what to do because we have ducks and geese in the city, and they said we have to leave. So f the government. We're living off the grid. So we move off the grid, and we live in a camping trailer from the 60s. Like 3 of us live in this 8x20 little trailer, and it's freezing cold. The ice in the winter is like the water condensates on the walls, and then it freezes to be like 2 inches thick on the sides. And the door is awful. Anyway,
did you ever have your blankets freeze to the wall in the morning as you tried to get out of bed?
I had my clothes would be stiff because they would be damp when we folded them. And so my jeans would be like, gotta break them apart. Good, clean fun. So I lived off the grid. It was actually pretty great in other ways, but yeah, I guess that's what I'm going to do now. So just, I'm cool with it.
The next Monster Ranger gathering will be in Alaska somewhere.
Well, or in a cave. I don't know. It's hot in Arizona though, so it makes it real hard.
So let me ask
right
you
now,
this.
don't think about weather. Where I live too. Right now, we just have to forget weather and just enjoy that.
Yeah, okay. Are you
as expensive?
I'll tell you.
I'm in California, but I'm in like the desert part of California.
Yeah, so that's a lot of California, my friend. I didn't know it until recently. Corey, what were you going to say?
I was going to say the solution to really hot weather is to move somewhere cold and then build a sauna in your backyard.
Man, I fantasize about that. The cold.
Whatever, Corey, selling your soul to Big Sauna.
Yeah, big sauna that I built with a buddy of mine.
Big sauna.
Some scrap lumber.
What state do you live in, Corey?
I'm in Idaho.
Idaho?
Yeah.
I'm from Spokane, Washington, which is nearly Idaho.
Yeah, I lived in I got my first job outside of college in Spokane. I was in Spokane Valley, and then I was in
where'd you work?
I used just a little media company called Gibby Media.
Yeah.
I used to climb in Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene, and then I'd take my motorcycle up to Sandpoint, and I love that area. Yeah. It's great. It's the only city I've ever seen that is a giant city, but everybody thinks that they live in a small town.
Yeah. We'll talk about Spokane, a different subject another time. I have a lot to say about it.
Good old Spokompton.
Yeah. Hey, they don't say that anymore, mister. There's some pride there now.
Good.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
I lived on Sprague.
So
yeah.
I used to work at Burnett Sportswear off of Sprague.
There you go. Yeah. I didn't know. I grew up in a very small town. I went to college in a very small town. And so I did what I normally do, which you did not know in a big city was a bad idea. I found the cheapest apartment complex in town, and that's where I lived. And I didn't realize that I just moved in with all of the drug addicts, drug dealers, hookers,
and doxies.
Just like, oh, it's like, okay. Yeah. So.
Yeah, Sprague.
Yeah, good old Sprague. Anyway. Yeah, so you're. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So I am stuttering because of the number of stories that I'm trying not to tell right now. Anyway, so
excellent.
Way off topic.
All right,
but
it's legal.
Frank wants to know more about your RPG.
All right.
Yes, I want to hear about it too.
So I tried to make. This is my third RPG that I've written, but the first I've published. So I basically did two others that collapse under page counts of thousands of pages, and it was just a nightmare, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I had to go the opposite direction and kind of like make an RPG like a haiku. So I licensed a game system called Fate, which is a really light story-based cinematic game system. And so that I don't have to talk about game mechanics at all, because I don't want to have a spreadsheet that I have to adjust in the third edition to make everything work right. So I chose a game system that's been really, proven. And basically the game is Pulp. So it's 1913 Pulp, where you're playing a Monster Ranger. A Monster Ranger is an adult that is like a Boy or Girl Scout, but they believe monsters. They can see monsters, which most people cannot. And we also help monsters. So you're kind of in service of monsterdom. But who are the bad guys in a situation like this? Because almost every scouting thing that has monsters, you're killing monsters, right? Well, we don't do that. So the bad guys are these old world aristocratic families, these houses that hunt monsters. They've gotten tired of like hunting for like those rare pygmy the pygmy albino elephants and the white tigers and stuff. And once they discovered the monster world, they were like, oh, this is the ultimate game.
I dare say,
yes,
monsters, yes.
Yes, but here's the other deal. Monsters are also the source of magic, right? They're from Monstru, the other side of our world. Magic flows through to our world through monsters. So they want power, right? They've already conquered banking and business and shipping. So they want to have power. So they actually hunt monsters and sup upon them. They eat them in feasts where they've invited all their friends to eat the owl bear with them, and they can sup upon the power, the magic. And so these are the bad guys, and they have lackeys called plug uglies and squabs. Squabs are like street people quality bad guys who are going to try to stab you with a tin can lid, and they might put like soot on their feet to make it look like boots, and they'll make their own top hats out of pieces of bark and stuff. And the plug uglies are the actual guys that they're the toughies. And so what they do is they drug them with this stuff that makes them into like 350-pound linemen, like NFL linemen, giant thugs who punch people with and they have guns that shoot wooden bullets and crap. Anyway, so those are the muscles, but they all live in these company towns. So, basically a monsterologist will have some sort of business and from like some extractive industry like mining or logging or whatever, or around a factory making toy dolls that blow up or whatever. And so all these guys are like slaves basically to them, working and earning their tin tin plug bucks and all that. Anyway, so in the game, you go on missions basically to help monsters. So typically the games start with you're gathering together this group of rangers from different places, different different groups, and you're pulling together for this mission. And you're like, so see, the owl bear's over there in real trouble, and and they kind of set up a thing, and then you go and try to help them. So yeah, mission based stuff. And it's pretty fun and weird and all that.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's legal in most provinces. So
Dylan Magwai of the Thalasso said, "I have been following your Facebook page for about a decade, Daniel."
Whoa, that's a third. You get 3 Barretts, mister.
And you said Facebook doesn't work anymore.
Well, it doesn't work like it did.
No, I know.
I mean, he's been following it since back when it worked.
It's before.
Yeah.
No.
Also, Gary said Corey is doing his best to negate everyone's O-line.
No, Corey, you're fine.
Corey, you're on point, dude. Don't worry, dude.
I just want to say Christopher Runsman agrees with me about Brave New World.
I do too.
Right now,
I think most people do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Many people haven't read that book. They've read Fahrenheit 451. They've read.
I haven't read it either. But when you described
Fahrenheit,
no, I've read Fahrenheit 451.
Okay.
You've got to
read that in high school.
You've got to read Brave New World. It is terrifying in its accuracy. Instead of everybody being oppressed, everybody is just entertained to the point of almost oblivion. It's like just before you're like totally unconscious. And they're actually just breeding. They're breeding different classes of people. So they've just genetically, they make some really stupid people to be the workers, and they make some less stupid people to be like kind of the proletariat. They make the slightly more intelligent people to be this, and then anyway, they rank everybody in that way. And it's really funny the way that they do different things. Monogamy is seen to be like a really gross kind of sin. Anyway, interesting book. Yeah.
If you want to go down Dopian Highway too, A Wanting Seed by Anthony Burgess is a great one as well.
Ooh,
that'll give you nightmares.
Have any of you guys read To Be or Not to Be by it's the number 2, the letter B, O. Anyway, it's Vonnegut, Kurt Vonnegut.
Sweet.
You gotta go find To Be or Not to Be. They have solved aging, and so they just have a 1-to-1. If you want to give birth, somebody has to volunteer to kill themselves, and the whole question is just like, how long do you want to live forever? And anyway, it's an interesting thing. Actually, the whole thing is about this guy painting a mural in a hospital, and interesting little short story. It'll take about 30 minutes to read. But yeah.
Nice.
I feel like I need to say something uplifting because I'm talking about AI apocalypse and suicide and totalitarian governments taking over and Pavlov's dog. I like art.
I think a good positive thing we could get into is Daniel's awesome story. Because
that is cool.
So you're incorporating the game mechanics from a different gaming system. Which is smart. I used to teach a class where people would design game boards and stuff, and I always suggested for the project that they base it on existing game boards and modify it slightly, because to mechanize like an entirely new game system, an N type, is really complex.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend time on that. Like it actually isn't my forte anyway. Like I'm a world builder, not a game expert, so I just and it's a generic
it lets you focus on the story.
Yeah, so I basically go, hey, if you see this icon that says fate, go ahead and just look it up, but otherwise I'm not really talking about mechanics. So yeah.
So you're talking about figures That I'm really curious about this. So, like, how is
in terrain and all that stuff?
Explain. Explain.
Yeah, so over here you see a little bit of a case. This is a 4x8 foot case. It's full of minis, and there's another case over here on the other side, just like it. And so I've collected minis since 1982, and
Sweet.
so I well, it isn't sweet. Like, it's really a sickness, but I can't get out of it. You know, I'm 78 now, so like I don't think I'm going to get over it. So the thing is, I didn't think I'd ever learn how to. Oh, let me back up. So I always thought it'd be great to make minis, but I'm like, but I don't know how to do that. And so back in the day, you'd use putty, you'd use green stuff putty to make a wire armature, and it'd take you like 40 hours to make one mini. And so I tried to make some with Super Sculpey, and they were pretty crappy and whatever. So over the last 15 years, every year I go, you know what I should learn? I should learn how to 3D sculpt.
Yeah.
That seems like the future.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I get 3D Studio Max, or I get, every year I try one, and then I use graphic software professionally for like 30 years. And what I use is for babies compared to 3D Studio Max, which you watch the drop downs, and I'm like, no one can use this.
It's crazy.
It is really hard to understand.
In 1994, I worked at a screen print shop in Spokane, Washington, and we got a computer, and we got Adobe Illustrator, like 2 or something. I don't know what it was. It was all on floppy disk. And we were trying to learn how to use it, but none of us could figure it out. We're like, why do they call this the Illustrator? You can't draw anything. So anyway, because we couldn't figure it out. So anyway, every year I try to learn a 3D program because I get the itch. I'm like, I got to learn this stuff. And then I give up after a little while because I'm like, and I keep on reading like, well, just keep practicing for 3 years and then you'll be able to sculpt something. And I'm like, 3 years? Like, I'm 78. I'm going to die soon. So I can't do that. So anyway, I try and fail. And then when I fail, I'm like, oh, F it. What am I doing? I should just focus on what I'm good at, and hire somebody. So a year ago, we put out the RPG. And I know a sculptor who works at Reaper Minis, one of the big mini companies. And he's like, hey, man, we should make Monster Ranger figures. And I'm like, dang right we should. Let's do it. So I spent all this time putting together some art and stuff for him. And then nothing really happens. And what I find out 10 months later, because nothing happened, was that he got COVID and had like a liver failure. He's really bad. Like, he was not in a good shape. So anyway, I felt really bad about that. But also I was like, okay, I was frustrated again because I'm like, darn it, at this point I wanted to have minis and now we don't have anything. So I said, sorry, man, I got to find someone else. So I once again opened up Nomad Sculpt, which is a program on the iPad, and it's basically like, it's like
ZBrush, right?
Yeah, but it's like to ZBrush is the same as what's the drawing program that everyone uses? The other one, the one you mentioned earlier.
Clip Studio.
No,
Clip Studio Paint.
Procreate.
So Procreate to Photoshop is Nomad Sculpt to ZBrush.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is the UI is really better. You can use it on a tablet. In fact, it's only on tablets, which I was like, how could that be good? You got to have a PC tower computer if you're going to do 3D modeling. And so I didn't believe it. And I played with it 2 years ago, and it was okay. Like, I did better than I'd ever done, but still I didn't make anything out of it. So I was frustrated. I'm like, gosh darn it. And I'm trying to find somebody to hire. And so then I get out Nomad Sculpt again, and I'm like, all right, let me see what this is doing. And I've been using the tablet primarily for when we go on camping tour in the summer. I can use Affinity. Well, so I get this Nomad Sculpt, and I kind of fail at it again, but this time I watched some tutorials. And the tutorials kind of made sense. And I'm like, oh, and so I made a really basic figure, but this was so much better than anything I'd done before. Because in the past, I would try to put two balls together, like just get two balls and squares, shapes, and have them touch. But it turns out they're miles apart.
Yeah,
you're doing this.
I am so relating to everything you're saying, Daniel, because I'm the same way.
Even in SketchUp. SketchUp?
And I had Corey's doing all this stuff with SketchUp, and I'm like, I don't know how to do this or whatever. But
anyway, so I was like, so I basically made a crappy thing, and then I made another crappy thing that was a little better, and I watched some more tutorials, and then I make a pumpkin head that I like. I'm like, hey, this isn't bad. And then I go and I make it. It's like one of my characters. It's called the Halloween Golem. So this is like a 6 foot tall mechanical with a big pumpkin head, and they were basically like the tractors of monsters. So they were invented to like take down all the forests, like the Tin Man or something. Anyway, I designed a mini. It isn't bad because I'm kind of doing like what Pixar did when they did Toy Story, right? I'm just going to do a mechanical being, right? So that's simpler than an organic. Well, I'll go grab him if you guys give me a minute to go grab one.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah, I'm so excited.
Right while Daniel's doing that, I mean, like I said, I'm totally relating to this because I know if I knew 3D, that would just open, especially with what I'm doing now with the maker stuff. That would open up a whole new world of things like create action figures or whatever. But I just always, I've went into it a couple times. Like even in college, I tried some 3D, and back then it was very limited what you could do. But I'm seeing Corey just pick up the app. Probably never even having looked at it before and figuring and doing stuff with it. But
I already had that installed.
Oh, you already had that. Okay. I was like, you sure jumped on that really quick. But I wrote it down, so maybe you'll have some time to play around, because if that's basically what Daniel's saying, and if he was able to pick it up, then maybe I will too.
Because I relate to Daniel too, where anytime I've messed with like all of the 3D programs, including SketchUp, it's like I can build like really basic house squares to represent, wow. Yeah, but like the thing he was just described with the balls, like is totally relatable.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then
that's so cool.
So this is a Vendomat. So this guy is selling cans of
cool
canned goods. So he's big.
Much detail in that little thing.
Yeah, he's real big.
Like my son got into doing painting, like painting minis, and I told him, because I don't know anything about it. But
can you hold up the
Vendomat? So this guy's really big. He's like 10 feet tall. Like this guy's 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
Or 7 foot tall. So this guy's huge.
Is that acrylic? Like, what is the clear part in the center?
So, when you buy minis in a blister pack, it's just the plastic that goes with them. I just cut a sheet of it and put it in the front.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so amazing.
So, he's selling Canyon Dans, which is a food that Rangers eat, and it comes in
a bobblehead.
No.
Okay, because it kind of looked like his head was like. I thought maybe.
No. Come on, Scott. I'm trying to pull.
Oh wow! You got it. Can we get?
This is a Kelpie.
Oh wow!
These are amazing. Yeah. So, out of curiosity, are you 3D printing these?
Yes.
Like,
are you using?
Do you have like a MakerBot at home or something?
No. I've got
So you sculpted that guy too. So you're definitely getting into doing human forms and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow! Yeah.
The details getting.
How long does it take to sculpt something like that once you learn how to do it?
Maybe. I usually do these in about a couple days of my like spare time, so maybe 8 to 12 hours. It depends, like this guy. I just got done with this guy, painting this guy and sculpting him. So this is a plug ugly. So this guy is again a 350-pound, 7 foot tall dude on a steam powered motorbike.
What advice would you give to somebody? Because I feel like I'm just like you, Daniel, but for all the setbacks you had for like giving up and starting again, what advice would you give somebody who wanted to?
These are unbelievable.
Because you're giving me hope. Because for you, somebody you just described me as when you started getting into this, And this is the stuff I would love to do because it would just open up a whole new world for me.
So can you do it? Yes. The advice is real simple. Watch some tutorials on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's when you search for tutorials, there's one guy that's going to come up, and his name is Dave Reed, I think.
Okay.
But if you search for, no bad sculpt tutorial, he'll be the number one guy. I mean, you'll just find him, and he'll have really like candy, like they look like vinyl toys that are all super, super kawaii, just super cute. And so he'll show you how to do stuff, but you just use those skills.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a building too. So these are the kind of things I want to talk about.
And you created that too? Wow.
Yeah.
So unbelievable.
This is a kit though. So this is, I have a laser. So this is a kit. And then what you do is you cut apart the frame.
Now,
and then
is that made out of, what material is that made out of? You cut it out.
So this is made out of MDF.
Okay.
That's the framing, but then I just put stir sticks. So MDF terrain, I don't know if you guys, I don't know how gamer you guys are, but MDF terrain is like cheap terrain that is lasered, right? But the thing about lasered terrain is they try to like laser in all the details, and so it kind of gets cheesy, right? Because it's like, here are the bricks and they're flat, and here are the planks, and those are okay, but then here's a bell, but it's flat. Like it's all trying to be the thing. And I'm like, hey, how about we use MDF for the framing of a house, and then you could just cut it apart. Because for me, I'm trying to make Mordheim plus Old West for the buildings. If you know about the Mordheim. Oh, look, I made a stove too. There's a little stove inside of there. And this pipe.
That's amazing.
So there's a little potbelly stove. You could barely sit in there.
These are incredible.
And they're strong too. That's a cool thing. Anyway, so my thought is that you laser a frame. And so it's really easy to make a frame of a building, right? You just glue these 4 pieces together on the floor. And then you just glue popsicle sticks so that your building looks totally different than my building. We use the same kit.
That's cool.
So anyway, so I'm wanting to go down this route for a lot of what I want to make, and then what I want to talk about, because now I'm finally like able to, I could tell you about the Monster Ranger world, but to show you what a Vendabat looks like is pretty rad. Like I haven't been able to really do that very well in the past, And I think I'm probably a better sculptor than I am a drawer somehow, which is pretty silly, but anyway.
Cool.
These look incredible.
That's cool. And I think I definitely think that's a good lead into, what we're going to talk about the next time you have you on, which will be maybe a couple months or whenever you do get the YouTube channel up and running, because that's something I'm definitely interested in talking about, because I'm going through all that process right now with my channel.
And I'm going to I'll be talking about even like how I sculpt, too. But it's doable. It's just, the one thing though is I had one of my pals come up to me and goes, well, those are great. Is it easy? I'm like, I wouldn't say it's easy. Like I had to put in mega hours. Like I was working like when I started in October, and when I started, we were kind of between shows. So I was able to like work on it for like, 18 hours a day, and I did for, a good month or two, like I was working until like 3 a.m, which, being 78, I usually don't, but it just, I was just so into it and excited that I was like, oh, I got to keep going. But it's definitely getting easier. I mean, I still think I know like, probably 10 or 15% of the program.
How long have you been working in the program?
Since October. I started in October.
Well, so, I mean, those things look amazing. Like I'm comparing it to some of the stuff that my son has, and I was like, So that definitely gives me hope, because I know you in that time you put in a lot of time, but
I think if you're
definitely realistic and doable, especially I think coming from having an art background too, and I've sculpted some stuff physical and everything, but
I have too, but not a lot. But what's funny is drawing, I think, is informing that. I mean, it's and I'm a vector drawer, so I'm not even using a pencil. So I'm like a special person, like using a mouse, like a weirdo, but it still works,
Have you ever tried VR sculpting?
I'm against it.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Oh, that's fine. I've got a buddy who's got an Oculus, which, not surprisingly, I don't think is a great idea in general. But the one useful thing that I think you can do with it is the sculpting is incredible, because you have, because I've had the same issue. doing 3D. Almost the same exact story, except I ended before you reached success. I just stopped and gave up.
Yeah.
But I've done the same thing, like tried it a few times, and every time I get
Oh,
I mean, my cousin works at DreamWorks, and he's like sat me down and he's like, okay, let's learn Maya. And I'm like, I
yeah.
just feel so stupid every time.
Well,
Anyway,
it's because they have it so it's like it's really CAD programming with no UI to make it useful.
It has CAD vibes to it, yeah, for
Boom.
sure. Too.
oh, definitely. But VR sculpting, even the most basic ones, you see your hands
Mm-hmm.
and you are in a 3D space. And so you can just turn it around and pull parts of it, and you have different tools. So you can cut parts off, and you can add parts, and you can color parts, and you can make your brush bigger or smaller. It feels like it feels like sculpting, but without having to deal with like clay or resistance or
Yeah.
physical materials.
I imagine
But
what you could do.
Or
Crazy.
kilns.
I imagine once you sculpt something, because like I would have I'd have trouble sculpting these little things, but I imagine that VR or whatever, you can sculpt big and then just
Well,
shrink it down.
Yeah,
same with
'cause you can,
yeah.
same with
you
the
can-
tablet for
Yeah,
that matter.
yeah.
I mean, because you could zoom in far beyond what you can
Yeah.
see. So the first minis I made, I put in all this detail that you can't see.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you print the minis and it's invisible.
Yeah.
Are you using
So-
are you using a traditional printer that has like the filament that goes back and forth?
And that's a
Or
resin
using-
printer.
Resin.
Oh, the
Oh,
UV
nice.
resin printers are significantly better.
Well, they're
That's
made
amazing.
for this is what all the mini nerds are using are these resin printers. So I got a $400, maybe $500 an Elegoo Saturn 3, which is a great little printer. And it takes, so I kind of print overnight because it's like if you print anything very tall, you're talking about like 12 hours, 14 hours
Right.
of it just like exposing one layer at a time. And I am not printing at the highest resolution, so I could even slow it down and make these probably pretty flawless. But you're always trying to compromise time, right? Because you're like, well, 24 hours to get, I could double the printing time to add a little bit better, quality. But anyway, it's great. But here's the problem. I'm going to sell these. These are going to be products.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I want to be production, right? Because that means I'm going to be in the garage printing all the time and cleaning minis all the time. And I need to be sculpting minis, I think. So you
sell the digital files, because you could probably
you can.
So
You
Daniel,
can.
what about using the can you it would it be possible to like 3D print the main and then resin cast, which would just expedite the process a ton, but then it's going to limit the poses, right? Because it would be splittable, but it's like,
And
is that something you've considered?
Yeah, but no, I'm not going to do that. I did a bunch of resin casting for we made some resin cast toys in the past and some skull slides and a lot of stuff like that, like maybe 20 projects, but it's a lot of work. And
it is,
and it's very hard to do something small like a mini like that. That's a level of skill that my molds were not good enough to do that. And also I love the freedom of not having to worry about them being flat enough that you can make a mold off of them,
that is cool.
You could do things, you break rules, which is pretty great. But the other part is to monetize this. I kind of need to sell products, right? Like no one's my audience is so small that I don't know that I'm going to sell a lot of STL files at, $4 each or $5 each or whatever, but when people see the minis in person, they're like, how do I get that now? And, I can monetize it a little easier, I think. Not that I won't sell STLs, but, and the other thing is that the market is super, just like everything, right? It's super congested with people, but everyone's doing kind of the same thing. Like almost everybody's like knocking Warhammer 40K. So like I'd say 80% are like just proxies of Games Workshop models so that they don't have to buy them from Games Workshop. So there's a lot of market there, but it's so crowded. But I'm making these in my style and they're weirder. And, I don't know. Man, I just need eyes. I need eyes in front of what we do. And I think we'll be okay. That's kind of this, kind of the bigger story. But I love making this stuff, and now
It's
now
beautiful.
that and now that I can, I think we're good at monetizing. I just need eyeballs. So anyway,
So, out of curiosity, Daniel, did it help also having such a long history of collecting and probably painting miniatures too? Because like the detail on those is incredible. So I would imagine that might have come into play when it came to painting them and stuff.
yeah, for sure. I think I know because I've been painting for a long time what's easier to
Yeah.
paint than what's harder to paint. So I have a little bit of a head start if you didn't know anything about miniatures. But you guys have good eyes. I think you could, if you picked up some minis, you could see or look at photos, you could see what the rules are. So, one of the things that this will be funny maybe to you guys. One of the things that's hardest for me to get across is proportions are different, right? So when you have a miniature, you have to make the head, the hands, and the feet really big, like ridiculously big. If you blew it up to human size, it would look stupid. But as a miniature, it needs that because that's what you're seeing. It's also easier to paint. They just look better with big heads. Well, but when you're sculpting, you can zoom in. So you're like sculpting in real, like, I could be sculpting a 6 foot tall person. So I never made the heads, the hands, and the feet big enough. So I started making them comically big, like oh, this is going to be stupid, but I'll do it on a monster where it doesn't matter. And then it looks good. I mean, like, oh, okay, that's fine that the shoes are 26 inches long or something. Anyway, but yeah, but vehicles
cool.
are.
I didn't even consider that, but that makes a lot of sense. But that's
so
you're going to want the details to be bigger. Yeah,
like way big. Like buttons are it'd be like at least this big. If it's going to be a snap, it needs to be enormous. So some of that would take some learning, but I study these things and love them. So, that part came pretty easy, but yeah, it's been really fun, but I feel good that I had to kind of show people. I'm like, are these okay or not okay? Cause I can't tell cause I like them.
Yeah.
But I could trick myself into loving whatever, so
Daniel, this has been a goal for a while for you. So do you how does it feel now that you have these set ones that look like legit? Like I could imagine walking into a gaming store and seeing these exquisite models that you made. How does that feel having come from the point of I can't get these two things to mesh together to that? I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's cool, but like anything, I'm sure you guys, you're like, yeah, but I got to get a lot more of these done. You're or I'm trying to worry about trying to figure out how to sell them. I'm like, what am I going to use for packaging? I don't know. I find things like clam cases that are $4 a piece. If you buy 1,000, I'm like, $4. I can't afford that. That's stupid. So, I'm trying to solve these problems. So part of me is antsy because I want to get these on the market. I've done about.
Don't a lot of people just sell them in little baggies with the little hang tag thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they do not do that, Scott.
I
not 82 anymore, Scott.
I could have sworn I went into a game store and they had something like that.
Yeah, well, that was 1982, Scott. God, dang it. Anyway, so my goal is to have 100 done by the end of the year. I'm at 40 something now, maybe close to 50. So it's very achievable, but the trick is I've got to get them to market. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a Kickstarter for the next Monster Ranger book, which is a monster source book 1. So it's just going to have 16 monsters in it. It has it'll have things like how to use the monster along with stats. And then it'll have cards that are for missions. So you go, hey guys, you're going to go help this Kelpie. And here's a card that everything we know about the Kelpie on this card, but a lot of that stuff isn't right. And so in the book, it'll show the picture and it'll go, well, this is the real facts about it. And then it'll have a few different ways to use them in a random chart and whatever, but I'm going to include 3 miniatures in that Kickstarter as a way to launch the minis. So it already pushed me back because I was working on the book before I knew I was going to sculpt. And then once I started sculpting, I'm like, what'd be great is to have every figure sculpted. But I'm going to only do 3 because I've got to test production, right? I'm going to have a friend do the production who has a print shop. He's got his side gig is printing minis, and he's really anal about the technical aspects. I am not that kind of guy. Like, I'm more like Jazz. So like, I just want to get a mini done so I can see it, but I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get this thing tuned down. Like, I'm doing that in the 3D modeling part. Like, I don't have enough technical juice to apply it to everything.
Oh yeah.
So, but can you do it? Yeah, absolutely. But you just have to have some, I think, distinct goals, like what you're trying to do. Watch some tutorials, and then make some stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's inspiring. And Frank keeps asking about it, but I mean, the game is available, right? I mean, you can't. I would say just go to SteamCrow.com, and I guess we'll lead out with this because this is where we kind of promote what we're doing and everything. But yeah, definitely check out SteamCrow.com. It's amazing the kind of stuff that Daniel and Donna do over there. So
our RPGs right in the store tab. Go to the store and RPG, and you'll see stuff there.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about the YouTube too. Like, it's really good.
Like I said, we'll have Daniel back on when he's ready to launch that. And we'll
like I've known that video is important for like 15 years, I think. But like, we're finally at the point where I feel like we've gotta now. Like, we've gotta. Also, I'm sorry not to just talk about myself. But
that's why you're here. You're the guest.
That's why you're here. Yeah.
But like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I've been doing cons since 2005, and I am tired of doing shows and traveling. Like, I'm 78, so like, we do a show, and I'm tired. Not for a day, like for like a week. I am exhausted for a week after every show, and like, my eyes can't focus for a week. Like, I cannot focus my eyes on a screen. So we just did Emerald City Comic Con. Well, I drove from Phoenix because we sell t-shirts, and that's 12 days. 12 days of our life is just driving, doing the show, and driving back. So you add 12 days, and then you add the couple weeks of prep, and then a week being exhausted. So I lost a month. And then we have our own Patreon, but we just do it ourselves. We host it ourselves with Squarespace, and because it's a lot cheaper than Patreon. So I pay like 1.5% instead of 10%. Which is great. So, but the problem is I come back and now I'm late on the next deliverable for Patreon because we send out products with that. So I have all these businesses that are fighting each other constantly, online store, the Patreon, and this. So I need to simplify my life, even if it takes us a long time on YouTube, which I'm counting on to get there. But like, we need some way to get seen so we could maybe sell some of our stuff and survive.
And the few other times where I know you kind of did make videos, and because you had a channel out there, I don't know if your old content's still out there, but you definitely have the chops to make something really cool. So I'm just excited to see what you the format and what it looks like when you actually start doing this stuff.
Well, we got a lot to learn, but I think we'll just have to do it. So we've already been filming a bunch. It's just it's all the other stuff. Like, I'm like, like, what's my thumbnail approach? Because because I'm like, I'm not going to use my head, but that's what everyone does. So what am I going to do instead of my head? That stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, that'll definitely be something I'd be interested to talk to you about, because I'm going through that whole thing right now. So anyway,
thank you guys for having me on here. You guys really enjoyed all of your feedback, Corey, and it was great. So thank you very much.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. So Josh, what tell people where to find you and everything.
Yeah, so you can find me Joshua Kemble on YouTube, occasionally on Corey and Scott's channel. Scott will be closing out, letting you guys know how to follow that. And then aside from that, Jacob's Apartment and Two Stories, my two graphic novels, support indie comics. Like we were talking about, that the AI thing is horrible, and you need to support non-AI art. Like support my non-AI art. Non-eart. Corey.
All right, Corey.
I was just going to say the word art is the descriptor for non-AI art.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a good simplifier.
We're bowing down to AI art all the time.
Yeah, if you'd like to support non-AI generated art stuff that humans have made for the past 6,000 years, Go to CoreyKerr.com. You can go to CoreyKerr.com/email if you would like to find out about the next chapter of the book that I'm writing live in front of everybody. You can go to CoreyKerr.com/email and check that out. We are, if you haven't read anything or listened to me read any of this yet, you will find out why it's very important to punch babies and old people directly in the face in this world. And also, you're about to find out what I think would happen if there was a memory lapse. So in like rom-coms, when somebody has amnesia, they still remember how to do everything. They still remember, like they just forget the convenient stuff to make it quirky, but they still remember all language and habits and skills and how to walk and stuff like that. I'm going to test out a theory in this next chapter that I've written and will be releasing soon on what would happen if everybody actually lost all of their memory. And so you have everyone of all ages, but they're reset to day 0 of their life, and they don't know how to do anything. So if you want to find that out, go to CoreyKerr.com/email, and you can also check out the videos that I've made on contrast, and I'm doing a little bit of drawing in between grading, so you can see that stuff.
Yeah, and definitely check out Corey's stories because the concept is insane, and I mean you have to listen to it to appreciate it. But it's crazy world building that would make a crazy RPG game too.
I'll let somebody else do that.
Yeah.
Corey, you need to make minis.
All right.
Daniel is welcome to make minis of my story.
I think he's going to be concentrating on his own stuff. So
yeah, he should.
All right. So as far as me, you can find me here on my channel. The other things you'll find on my channel is my series Making Comics 101, soup to nuts, most comprehensive course on making comics for free that you'll find anywhere. It's on my YouTube channel. Check that out. Also check out the videos that I'm doing now where I am looking at old nostalgia, ephemera, crazy stuff from the past that you would order from the back of comic books, stuff like that, things that people used to collect, and kind of bringing it back, but putting my own spin on it and creating it from scratch. So definitely check that stuff out. You can also go to my website at circworks.com where I have some of those things that I've made on my store, plus my comics, Young and the Dead, A Kids vs. Zombie Adventure Story. Definitely check that out. All that stuff's available at circworks.com. But this show that we do this show every single week. It's called the Artcasters, and you just got a little taste of it now if you're new. But we do it every single week. But it's not always going to be here on my channel. Next week, I think it's not going to be on Josh's channel and then Corey's. I think that's the order. But it's confusing, so that's why I don't know. But if you don't want to be confused, the best thing to do is just join our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything. All we do is about 30 minutes before we go live, we give you a link. We tell you who the guest is going to be, what the topic's going to be, and what channel it's going to be on, so you don't have to worry about, oh, where's it going to be this week or whatever. That's the easiest way to do it because YouTube doesn't always notify people when we put out a new episode anyway. So sign up for that mailing list. Like I said, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and we don't spam you. So I want to thank Daniel. I want to thank everyone in the chat. Very lively chat. We tried to pull up as many of those comments as we could. Sorry if we didn't get to yours or address it, but we do appreciate the chat, and we'll see you guys all next week for another episode. Later.